It begins with a notification, a soft, melodic chime at 8:45 p.m. on a Tuesday. You've had a long day at the office, the kind of day that drains your cognitive reserves until your brain feels like a spent battery. You look at the fridge, but the thought of chopping an onion feels like climbing Everest. So, you reach for the black mirror in your pocket. A few taps, a Face ID scan, and a $30 burrito is on its way. It feels like a win. It feels like you've reclaimed your time. But as a forensic investigator, I see something else entirely. I see a micro-catastrophe. I see the first domino in a systemic collapse of your long-term net worth. This isn't just about food or a cardboard box from Amazon arriving at your door. Yes, this is about the systematic removal of the pain of paying, a psychological barrier that once stood between you and financial ruin. Before we dissect the forensic math of your last 5 orders, take a moment to subscribe to the channel Bond Money Mind, where we strip away the marketing gloss to reveal the cold, hard numbers of your financial reality. Look at your screen. The interface is clean, colorful, and frictionless. There is no physical exchange of currency. There is no counting of bills, no tactile sensation of leather opening or paper leaving your hand. This is intentional. Behavioral economists call it the decoupling of consumption from payment. When you use DoorDash or Amazon Prime, the pain, the neurological trigger in the insula of the brain that fires when we lose resources, is silenced. You aren't spending money. Now you're just clicking a button. But the money is very real, and the way it's being extracted is a masterpiece of forensic engineering. Let's perform a recursive subtraction on a standard $30 delivery order. Most people think they are paying for food and a small convenience fee. They are wrong. You start with the menu price, which is already inflated by 15 to 20% compared to the physical restaurant to cover the platform's commission. Then, you add the service fee, then the delivery fee, then the small order fee if you didn't spend enough, then the regulatory response fee, and finally, the tip. By the time the bag hits your porch, that $12 burrito bowl has cost you $32. That is a 166% markup on the base commodity. From a forensic perspective, you are not buying food. You are paying a massive invisible tax on your own decision fatigue. Now, let's apply the energy cost filter. If you earn $30 an hour after taxes, that one meal didn't cost you $30. It cost you over an hour of your life. But it's worse than that. Because that $30 was discretionary income. The money left over after your rent, insurance, and utilities are paid. For the average American, discretionary income is only about 15% of their gross pay. To afford that $30 markup, you didn't just work 1 hour. You worked an entire day to generate enough free cash to cover the convenience of one meal. This is the systemic trap. The apps sell you time, but they charge you so much for it that you have to work more hours to pay for the service that was supposed to save you time. It is a closed-loop system designed to keep your net worth at zero. Amazon Prime operates on the same forensic logic, but with a different psychological hook: the sunk cost fallacy. You pay your annual membership fee, and suddenly, you feel a subconscious obligation to get your money's worth. The free shipping tag acts as a sedative. It removes the final moment of hesitation. In a traditional retail environment, you have to drive to the store, find the item, and stand in line. Each step is a friction point that allows your rational mind to intervene and ask, "Do I actually need this?" Prime removes every one of those checkpoints. It creates a license to spend. We see this in the data. The average Prime member spends nearly twice as much as a non-member. They aren't buying more because they need more. They are buying more because the pain of paying has been surgically removed from the user experience. You aren't a customer in this scenario. You are a data point in a high-frequency trading algorithm designed to harvest your future capital. When you look at your bank statement, you don't see a single large theft. You see 1,000 tiny cuts. $10 here, $5 there, a $20 subscription you forgot to cancel. This is forensic math in its purest form. We subtract the hidden fees, we subtract the opportunity cost of the invested capital, and we subtract the labor hours required to fund the lifestyle. What remains is the truth. These platforms are not utility providers. They are wealth extraction engines. They rely on your exhaustion, so they gamble on the fact that you will be too tired to care about a $5 convenience markup. But over a decade, those $5 markups, compounded at a standard 7% market return, represent the difference between a comfortable retirement and a perpetual cycle of debt. In this investigation, we aren't looking for a villain in a mask. We are looking at the incentive mismatch between your long-term stability and the quarterly growth targets of Silicon Valley. They want your frictionless clicks. You need the friction to survive. The pain of paying was a survival mechanism. It was the internal alarm that told our ancestors when they were depleting their winter stores too quickly. By silencing that alarm, DoorDash and Amazon have left you cognitively defenseless against the slow bleed of your net worth. As we move into the next phase of this forensic audit, we will look at the subscription trap and how the recurring revenue model is the most dangerous weapon ever leveled against the American middle class. We will break down why your saved time is actually a debt you are taking out against your future self. Stay sharp. The numbers never lie, but the interfaces always do. This is just the beginning of the audit. We are peeling back the layers of the convenience economy to see who is actually profiting from your exhaustion. Because in the world of forensic finance, if you can't see the cost, you are the cost. Let's look at the anatomy of a single transaction. We'll call this the forensic breakdown of the lazy Sunday order. You're hungry. You open DoorDash. You see a burger for $15. In your mind, that is the cost. But the forensic reality is a layered stack of capital extraction. First, there is the menu markup. Restaurants often raise their prices by 20 to 30% on these platforms to cover the commission the app takes from them. So, that $15 burger is actually $12 at the counter. You've already lost $3 before you even hit the checkout button. Next, we apply the delivery fee. $4, then the service fee. $3, then the regulatory response fee or some other localized tax that the platform passes on to you. Another $2. Now we add the tip. And for a driver risking their vehicle and time, $5 is the baseline. Your $15 burger just became $29. That is a 93% markup on the base utility of the food. If you did this twice a week, you are leaking over $1,400 a year in pure friction. Now, apply the recursive subtraction. If you earn $60,000 a year, after federal, state, and payroll taxes, you're taking home roughly $45,000. Your rent and utilities eat $25,000. You have $20,000 left for everything else. That $1,400 in delivery friction represents 7% of your total annual disposable income. You aren't just paying for a burger, you are paying a 7% tax on your freedom for the privilege of not walking 3 blocks. This is the systemic trap. The platform isn't a service provider, it's a toll booth positioned between your hunger and your wallet. Amazon Prime operates on a similar, albeit more sophisticated, psychological bypass. They sell you a subscription for $139 a year. They call it free shipping. In forensic terms, this is a prepaid sunk cost. Once you have paid that fee, your brain classifies the shipping cost as 0. This triggers a cognitive bias known as the sunk cost fallacy. You feel compelled to order more frequently to get your money's worth from the membership. The data shows that Prime members spend nearly double what non-members spend annually. You think you're saving money on shipping, but you're actually increasing your total consumption volume by 40 to 50%. The pain of paying has been surgically removed. When you have to enter your credit card details, your brain registers a micro-sting of loss. When you use one-click buy, that sting is bypassed. The capital leaves your account before the logic center of your brain can even process the utility of the purchase. We are seeing a massive incentive mismatch. The platform's incentive is to maximize your velocity of spend. Your incentive should be to maximize your retention of capital. these two goals are diametrically opposed. Every feature added to these apps, from express delivery to buy again prompts, is a weaponized piece of code designed to lower your defensive friction. In a forensic audit of a household's net worth, we don't look at the big purchases first. We look at the micro leaks. $100 here, $50 there. Over a 10-year horizon, these leaks, if invested in a standard index fund at a 7% return, represent the difference between retiring at 60 or working until you're 75. You are trading 15 years of your life for the convenience of not grocery shopping. That is the ultimate recursive subtraction. The energy cost is also hidden. We think we are saving time, but what are we doing with that saved time? Are we generating more capital? Usually no. We are consuming more content, which leads to more targeted ads, which leads to more one-click purchases. It is a closed-loop system of wealth extraction. You are the battery in this machine, and the convenience apps are the terminals draining your voltage. We need to reintroduce friction, but we need to bring back the pain of paying because that pain is the only thing standing between you and a zero-balance savings account. When you remove the friction, you remove the guardrails. And without guardrails, the descent into net worth depletion is a straight line down. Let's dig deeper into the Amazon algorithm. It doesn't just suggest what you want. It suggests what will keep you in the ecosystem. It's a velocity trap. They know that if they can get you to buy a toothbrush, you'll likely buy the toothpaste, and then the floss, and then the mouthwash. Each individual item might seem cheap, but the cumulative energy cost of managing these micro-deliveries is massive. You are managing a supply chain for a household of 1 or 4, using the same complexity as a mid-sized corporation, but without the wholesale pricing. Yet you are paying retail prices, plus a convenience premium for a logistics network that you don't actually need. The forensic math here is brutal. For every dollar you spend on a convenience platform, you are essentially spending $1.40 of your pre-tax income. If you are in the 24% tax bracket, you have to earn $131 to spend $100. When you add the 30% convenience markup, you have to earn $170 just to get $100 worth of actual goods. That $70 gap is the convenience tax. It is the most expensive tax in America, and it's the only one you volunteer to pay every single day. The system is designed to make you feel like a king, with servants bringing goods to your door, all while the math shows you are actually becoming a tenant of your own lifestyle. You are renting your time from corporations at an interest rate that would make a loan shark blush. Every skip-the-line option is a withdrawal from your future self's retirement fund. We have to stop looking at these apps as tools and start looking at them as predatory financial instruments. They aren't helping you manage your life, they are managing your exit from the middle class. The removal of the pain of paying is the most dangerous innovation in the history of consumer finance because it turns the act of spending into a mindless biological reflex. You wouldn't leave your front door wide open in a high-crime neighborhood, yet you leave your digital wallet wide open to algorithms that are specifically trained to empty it. This is not a failure of willpower. It is a failure to recognize a systemic extraction model. In the next phase of our audit, we will look at how this convenience culture has decimated the concept of price discovery and why you no longer know what anything actually costs.
Let's open the ledger on a standard Friday night order. You think you're paying $20 for a burger and fries. You aren't. We need to perform a recursive subtraction to see the forensic reality of this transaction. First, look at the menu price inflation. Most users don't realize that restaurants are forced to increase their digital menu prices by 20 to 30%, just to break even after the platform takes its commission. So, that $15 burger is already $18 or $19 before you even hit the checkout button. This is the first layer of the systemic trap, the invisible markup. Now, let's add the service fee. It's usually a percentage, designed to look small, but it scales with your hunger. Then the delivery fee, which fluctuates based on algorithms you don't control. Then the tip. In the United States, The tipping culture has been weaponized by these platforms to subsidize the wages they refuse to pay their independent contractors. You're essentially paying the company's labor costs out of your own post-tax income. Let's do the math on a $30 order. After the markup, the fees, and a standard 20% tip, that $30 meal is now $52. But we aren't done. We have to look at the energy cost and the tax drag. You paid for that $52 meal with money you earned. If you're in a 24% tax bracket, you had to earn roughly $68 in gross income to afford that $52 delivery. Now, compare that to the $12 of raw ingredients it would have cost to make that meal at home. The delta is $56 of gross earnings. If you do this 3 times a week, you're hemorrhaging $8,700 of gross income per year on the illusion of saved time. The platform tells you that you saved 45 minutes of cooking and cleaning. But let's look at your hourly rate. If you earned $30 an hour, you spent over 2 hours of your life forced to save 45 minutes of domestic labor. That is a negative ROI of over 100%. This is not a service. It is a wealth extraction mechanism disguised as a lifestyle upgrade. The systemic failure here is the decoupling of the transaction from the physical sensation of loss. When you walk into a grocery store, you see the prices, you feel the weight of the bags, and you hand over a card or cash. With DoorDash, the pain of paying is surgically removed. The app stores your biometric data, a thumbprint or a face scan, and the money vanishes. By the time the food arrives, the financial transaction is a distant memory, replaced by the dopamine hit of salt and fat. This is intentional. The frictionless interface is designed to bypass the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logical financial planning, and target the lizard brain. We see this same pattern in the Amazon Prime ecosystem, but on a much larger scale. Prime is not a shipping service, it is a subscription to spend. Once you pay that annual fee, you feel a psychological obligation to get your money's worth. This leads to what we call incremental leakage. You need one item, but because the shipping is free, you find yourself adding 3 more items to the cart that you didn't need 10 minutes ago. The forensic math of Prime shows that the average member spends nearly double what a non-member spends annually. You aren't saving money on shipping. You're paying a premium for the privilege of being constantly marketed to in your own home. Look at the one-click buy button. It is the ultimate weapon in the war against your net worth. It removes the cart phase, the final checkpoint where a rational human might reconsider a purchase. By removing the friction, they remove the reflection. You are no longer a consumer making a choice. You are a node in a logistics network, automatically triggering shipments based on impulse. When we aggregate these micro-leaks, the DoorDash markups, the Prime impulse buys, the hidden service fees, we see a systemic drain on the middle-class balance sheet. It's a death by 1,000 cuts. Each individual cut is small enough to ignore, but collectively, they represent the difference between retiring at 55 or working until 75. The convenience economy is built on the assumption that you value your time more than your money, but it fails to mention that the time you save is often spent scrolling through more apps, leading to more consumption. It is a closed loop of financial depletion. We have to ask, who benefits from this frictionless world? It isn't the restaurant owner who is seeing their margins squeezed to the bone. It isn't the delivery driver who is trading the depreciation of their vehicle for sub-minimum wage pay. And it certainly isn't you. The only winner is the platform aggregator, the entity that sits in the middle and collects a toll on every heartbeat of the modern economy. But they have turned the pain of paying into a ghost, and in doing so, they have made it nearly impossible for the average person to track the true cost of their existence. Let's go deeper into the hidden energy cost. Every time you outsource a basic human function, like obtaining food, you lose a degree of financial sovereignty. You become dependent on a system that optimizes for its own profit, not your well-being. The forensic reality is that these platforms are not selling you food or products. They are selling you the temporary relief from the friction of life. But that friction is what keeps your budget in check. Without it, you are a ship without a rudder, drifting into a sea of debt and diminished returns. In the next phase of our investigation, we will look at how this ecosystem scales and how the subscription trap ensures that even when you aren't buying anything, you're still paying for the right to be a customer. We will break down the prime effect on the American household and see how the free shipping lie is the most expensive thing you will ever buy. This is about more than just a few extra dollars on a pizza. It is about the systematic dismantling of your ability to build long-term wealth in an economy designed to keep you in a state of perpetual, convenient poverty. We are examining the architecture of a trap that is so comfortable, most people don't even realize they're inside it. Every notification, every limited time offer, and every suggested for you is a calculated strike against your financial future. The data doesn't lie, and the data shows that your convenience has a price tag that your future self cannot afford to pay. We are peeling back the layers of the digital interface to reveal the raw, predatory math underneath. Stay with me. The numbers are about to get much darker. Let's look at the infrastructure of the trap. We've established that the fees are hidden, but the real crime is the engineering of your behavior. In a forensic audit of a crime scene, we look for the motive. In the digital economy, the motive is the total elimination of the prefrontal cortex's veto power. We call this the frictionless feedback loop. When you use DoorDash or Amazon Prime, you're participating in a systemic incentive mismatch where the platform's growth is fueled by your inability to perceive the loss of capital in real time. Let's run the forensic math on the one-click lifestyle over a standard decade of a professional career. If you use these services to save an average of 3 hours a week, you tell yourself you're gaining time. But let's look at the ledger. For 3 hours a week is 156 hours a year. At a median professional wage of $40 an hour, that is $6,240 of theoretical time value. However, the forensic reality is different. The cost of those services, including the hidden 20% menu markups, the service fees, the delivery fees, the tips, and the Prime subscription itself, averages out to approximately $9,000 annually for the high-frequency user. Now, we apply the recursive subtraction of taxes. To have $9,000 in post-tax liquid cash to spend on convenience, you had to earn roughly $12,500 gross. You're working 300 hours a year just to pay for the services that claim to save you 156 hours. This is a net loss of 144 hours of your life every single year. You aren't buying time. You're selling your life at a 50% discount to a logistics algorithm. That is the systemic failure. The math does not resolve in your favor. The pain of paying is a biological defense mechanism. It is the sting you feel when you hand over physical cash. It triggers the same part of the brain as physical pain. Amazon and DoorDash have successfully lobotomized this reflex. By separating the act of consumption from the act of payment by a digital barrier, they have created a state of financial anesthesia. You are bleeding out your net worth, but you can't feel the wound because the interface is too smooth. Look at the default choice architecture. When you open Amazon, you aren't looking at a marketplace. You're looking at a filtered reality designed to maximize the velocity of your spending. The Buy Now button is a forensic bypass of your rational judgment. It removes the 3 seconds of reflection that would normally allow you to ask, "Do I need this, or am I just bored?" The energy cost of this system is also passed to you, though it remains invisible on the receipt. Every delivery requires a complex chain of carbon, fuel, and human labor. As energy costs rise, the platforms don't eat the cost. They simply recalibrate the algorithm to nudge you toward higher margin items. You're paying for the inefficiency of a system that prioritizes speed over sustainability. The systemic trap is that these platforms have become the tax collectors of the modern middle class. In the past, you paid taxes to the state for infrastructure. Now, all you pay a convenience tax to private corporations just to access the basic goods of life without friction. This tax is regressive. It hits those who value their perceived time the most but have the least actual capital. Let's perform a recursive subtraction on the prime effect. You pay $139 a year for the membership. To the algorithm, that is not a fee. It is a sunk cost fallacy trigger. Because you have paid for the membership, your brain demands that you get your money's worth by ordering more frequently. This leads to an average increase in annual spending of nearly 200% compared to non-Prime members. You're paying for the privilege of being manipulated into spending more money on things you didn't know you wanted until an AI suggested them. This is the incentive mismatch. Amazon's goal is to capture 100% of your wallet share. Your goal should be to maximize your wealth retention. These two goals are diametrically opposed. Every feature they roll out, 1-hour delivery, voice-activated ordering, automatic refills, is a tactical strike against your net worth. They are removing the friction because friction is the only thing that keeps your money in your pocket. In a forensic investigation, we follow the money. The money is flowing from your long-term investment accounts into the short-term operational expenses of logistics giants. You are trading your retirement for the immediate gratification of a lukewarm burrito or a plastic gadget delivered in 24 hours. When you remove the pain of paying, you remove the guardrails of your future. What you are becoming a consumer node in a high-velocity capital loop, where your only function is to facilitate the movement of cash from your employer to the platform with as little resistance as possible. We need to understand that convenience is the most expensive commodity in the world. It is priced so high because it is sold in such small, invisible increments that you don't realize you're being overcharged until the audit of your life reveals a massive deficit. The system isn't broken. It is functioning perfectly. It is designed to extract the maximum amount of capital from you while providing the minimum amount of lasting value. It is a slow-motion forensic drain on the American dream. One free delivery at a time. If you want to stop the bleed, you have to reintroduce the friction. You have to force yourself to feel the pain of the transaction. You have to recognize that every convenient choice is a withdrawal from your future freedom. The math is cold, and it is absolute. You're currently paying a premium to be a passive participant in your own financial erosion. It's time to look at the ledger and realize that the most expensive thing you can buy is the illusion that your time is free. It isn't. It's the only thing you have that is truly finite, and you are trading it for the convenience of not having to think. That is the ultimate systemic failure. The final audit of the convenience economy reveals a terminal velocity that most consumers are ill-equipped to handle. We have spent the last 4 segments deconstructing the architecture of the invisible tax, the psychological decoupling of value, and the predatory nature of the frictionless interface. Now, we must look at the systemic outcome of these microleaks when they are projected across a lifetime. This is the forensic conclusion of the convenience trap. When we analyze the macroeconomic impact on the individual, we see that DoorDash and Amazon Prime have effectively created a private taxation system. In a standard forensic math model, we look at the recursive subtraction of value. Let's take a standard $75 grocery order delivered via a third-party app. On the surface, you see $75. But when we strip away the layers, the reality is stark. First, we subtract the 15% average item markup, bringing the real value of the goods down to $63. Then, we subtract the $6 delivery fee and the $7 service fee, reducing the value to $50. We then subtract the $8 tip, bringing us to $42. Finally, we account for the sales tax, which is calculated on the inflated price, not the base value, and the energy cost of the labor required to earn that $75 in the first place. If you earned $30 an hour after taxes, you worked 2.5 hours to receive $42 worth of actual sustenance. The systemic failure here is the belief that you're trading money for time. In reality, you're trading your future autonomy for a momentary hit of dopamine. The incentive mismatch is absolute. Amazon's primary objective is not to deliver your package. It is to ensure that the barrier between an impulse and an acquisition is zero. DoorDash's objective is not to feed you. It is to insert itself as a permanent toll booth between you and your basic needs. They have successfully commodified your laziness and rebranded it as efficiency. This is a forensic certainty. The more frictionless a transaction becomes, the less value the consumer retains. We are seeing a generation of workers who are effectively working the first 10 hours of their week just to pay for the convenience of the previous week. This is a debt cycle disguised as a lifestyle choice. To break the cycle, you must reintroduce the pain of paying, so the brain's insular cortex must be re-engaged. This means moving back to a high-friction financial life. You must delete the saved credit card information from every app. You must force yourself to manually enter the 16 digits, the expiration date, and the security code for every single purchase. This 3-minute delay is often enough to allow the prefrontal cortex to override the impulse triggered by the sleek user interface. You must conduct a recursive audit of your last 90 days of transactions. Subtract the fees, the markups, and the tips from your total delivery spend. Look at the remaining number. That is the actual value you received. The delta between that number and what you actually paid is the convenience tax. For most American households, this tax exceeds $5,000 a year. What if that $5,000 were invested in a simple index fund over 30 years? It represents a loss of nearly $500,000 in terminal wealth. That is the price of not wanting to drive to the store. That is the cost of the Buy Now button. We are living in an era where the most revolutionary act you can perform is to be difficult to sell to. Being a high-friction consumer is the only way to protect your net worth from the algorithmic extraction machines. You must recognize that every recommendation is a calculated attempt to redirect your capital into their ecosystem. The system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as intended. It is designed to keep you in a state of perpetual, comfortable poverty. It is a slow bleed, a quiet erosion of your financial foundation that happens one free delivery at a time. This investigation has shown that the path to wealth is not just about earning more. It is about refusing to let your capital be harvested by the convenience cartel. You have to be the auditor of your own life. You have to look at the ledger and realize that your time is being stolen under the guise of being saved. This is Bond, concluding the forensic deep dive into the convenience economy. If you want to continue deconstructing the systems that are engineered to keep you broke and learn how to reclaim your financial sovereignty, you need to stay informed. Make sure to subscribe to Bond Money Mind. We provide the forensic tools you need to survive the modern market. Don't be a casualty of convenience. Keep your eyes on the data and your hands on your capital. Stay sharp. Stay investigative. Subscribe to Bond Money Mind now and join the few who see the system for what it truly is. Our investigation continues in the next briefing. Until then, watch your margins.